TV Shore's back. It is April the 9th, 2016. It's 11:29 p.m. We're going to try to explore a few of these phrases that the Lord has brought to my attention and wants me to focus on. But first, I want to point out something. We're going to pop back over here, and I know you may get tired of hearing this verse, but it's important that we understand what's being said here. That he might sanctify and cleanse it, the church, with the washing of water by the word. Okay, there are a few things we need to keep in mind. First, that the church today is not what the church was intended to be. It's not what Christ intended the church to be. As I've said before, we can clearly see in Revelation there are 7 churches, and that only one of those is the true church, is pleasing to the Lord. So, knowing that, we have to understand that when we speak about the church, we need to be grasping the thought that the church that we are speaking about are those who are only true followers of Christ. And true followers of Christ, based on a good definition of what that is not an easy thing to be. A lot of people in the church, they're not real concerned about adhering to certain things to ensure that they are basically living a life that's pleasing to the Lord. They go about it really casually, and that is not at all what a true follower of Christ does. But what I want to point out is that the things that we've learned about the Word, first, we know that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and that was Christ, okay? And we have learned through this study that the Word is a lamp unto our feet. It was in Psalm 119, I believe. And we have learned in this scripture that there is a cleansing and a sanctifying that comes with the washing of water by the Word, okay? So the Word is many things to us. And it's important that we understand the importance of the Word, how significant the Word is to us, because that's one thing that I have been speaking about almost constantly. It's about us digging into the Word and building that deeper relationship with the Lord, because that is one of our main tools, one of our main ways of growing our relationship with Him, because Scripture tells us that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, that He is the Word. And if we get into the Word, we are only growing closer to Him. And the reason I bring all that up and speak about this purifying, this sanctifying and cleansing with the washing of the water by the Word, is when we look at this over here. This is where the Lord took me as I was trying to understand about the marriage that's being spoke of, okay? And I know I may be dragging this out some because I've got so much information in my head, and I'm just having trouble knowing which direction to go with it, because there's some things that I just can't get into without taking us down other avenues and longer studies, and that's not what the Lord wants me doing right now. He wants me staying focused on this one thing. And I would love to do a teaching on John 2, because this has been a scripture that has intrigued me for quite some time. But that's not what the Lord had me do right now. We're going to pick out a few things here, and we're going to try to clarify some of it and just what it means to what we're trying to understand about the marriage. When we look here at John 2:1, we see, and the third day there was a marriage. Well, we know, as I explained in the last video, the third day represents the day of resurrection, which to us, let me get back over here to my notes. Let's see. The third day is Resurrection Day, which is the day of transformation. And I've got and glorification here, but that's actually, they don't happen simultaneously. But what we can look at here, and I need to take that off of there, and I meant to do it before. This is about transformation. The third day is the day of resurrection. There was a marriage. So this is about the day of transformation. And what takes place on that day? There is a marriage. And as we looked in Ephesians 5, we understood that this marriage is about two becoming one. Okay? And it's not a marriage as we typically think of marriage. This is about, let's pop back over there for a moment at Ephesians 5. And I know I've touched on this. It's about the cleansing that came, that brought about the bride being spotless and wrinkle free and holy and without blemish. It is about us being members of one body, of his flesh and of his bone. It is about two shall be one. But this is a spiritual application we're talking about now, not a physical, okay? So when we get into the the spiritual application of this, there are things that we just do not understand and comprehend. But something that the Lord was showing me here in this, in John chapter 2, that this is, he's leaving. Let me explain. I'm not quite sure how to put this into words, but the Lord, he leaves us, I call it nuggets within the scripture, that when we are seeking to better understand the deeper things, we find these nuggets. And these are examples of these nuggets, okay? The third day, resurrection, there was a marriage. It's the becoming one with the Lord, okay? Our resurrection day, the resurrection day, the transformation day for us, when we put off this corruptible and become incorruptible. This is what this is referring to. Third day, there was a marriage. Okay? We see also, it says, and both Jesus was called and his disciples. Now, here's where I want to point out disciples. What disciples are. If we look at and this is with the Strong's word, 3101, I cannot pronounce this. Y'all can do that. But we see that it means a learner, disciple, pupil. If we go on down here to helps word studies, and we just read simply what it says, and I'm just going to, it says, the mental effort needed to think something through. It's about, for instance, the learning part of it. A learner, a disciple, a follower of Christ who learns the doctrines of Scripture and the lifestyle they require. Someone, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, with proper instruction from the Bible, with its necessary follow through life applications. So it's about learning. Being a disciple of Christ is about learning his doctrines and applying it to our life, to live in a way that's pleasing to him, to strive to be like him. Okay? It's not simply saying I believe. It is about a lifestyle that we live and striving to be like him and learning his doctrines and living by those, okay? And it's important that we understand that, because those that go into the marriage have to have learned. That's why I keep saying we have to dig into the word. We have to have learned the deeper things and understood the deeper things that have grown us in that relationship. Okay, we want to come now and let's take a look at this where he says in verse 4, mine hour is not yet come. Now, I wanted to understand that because it jumped out at me. And usually, when the Lord jumps something out at me, it has to do with the bigger picture of what He wants me to see within something. So, as I pondered this, mine hour's not yet come, I knew I had heard throughout Scripture something similar to that, but I wasn't sure to exactly what it applied. I couldn't recall. But I found it pretty quickly, and it's about, here we look in John 17:1, and I found other examples. I'm just using this one. John 17:1 says, "These words spake Jesus, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee." So it's about the time of glorification. Okay, I wish I could do a study on exactly what all that means. But I can't right now because we've got to stay focused on this other. But this has brought so many things to my attention that I would love to seek the Lord on and do a study on. But if we trail off on it now, it's just going to keep us from getting to the root of where we need to be with this wise and foolish parable. But the point of this is to let us know that over here in John 2, where it says, "Mine hour is not yet come," he's talking about his hour of glorification. His hour, let's look at that again. It says, "Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee." So it's about the glorification of Christ, that Christ may also glorify the Father. It's about bringing to fullness the event that's about to take place, for a lack of a better way to phrase it, because we saw at one point in the scripture that it was in reference to um, at that time, and was the betrayal. So it lets us know it's all about his hour has come for his death, burial, and resurrection, which leads to the glorification. If you follow what I'm saying here. Like I said, I wish I could get into it deeper and give better understanding, but that's not what our study is on at the moment. I'm just trying to point out some things. So here we've learned that in the scripture, we see it points us to the resurrection day and the two becoming as one. And we see it is about the glorification. And I'm going to pick up on the next video with the rest of it.